My name is Abigail Gibbons. I am the very proud creator and moderator of the WOW series, and I'm so happy and humbled to have all of you here today as we talk about what's next. So we are here today to talk about how to navigate and succeed in your next chapter with purpose. So thank you to everyone who's financially supporting the WOW series, because you are helping with our mission of gender equality. That is why we are created. So we were created to help move the needle forward with advancing women in the workplace by providing them a platform to be heard. So the WOW series is a digital thought leadership platform where we feature female leaders from around the world who are paving the way forward for the next generation of entrepreneurs, of activists, of professionals, and athletes alike. Our goal with every conversation is to not only provide accessible mentorship and resources for the next generation, but to also inspire social entrepreneurship and how we can leverage our corporate careers with our entrepreneurial and outside passions. So I wanted to share a bit more about my personal story with what inspired this topic of what's next. So when I first started my career after college, I was a student athlete. So I went to college really to play sports, right? And I graduated and I thought, I have no idea what's next for me. I have no idea what it is I want to do with my life. I have no idea what it is I want to do with my career. And that was the first moment in my life where I wish that I had a community and discussion like this, right? To help me navigate that path forward. But then again, after several years into my career in marketing, I found myself wondering, now I have all this experience. I have incredible relationships and networking. I've learned so many great tools in my career at my 9-to-5. How can I leverage this to also help grow and pursue my outside passions of connection, of community building? And that is really what came together to start the WOW series here today. And it was thanks to life coaches, to friends, to networking events that I was able to help navigate what's next. And so I'm so honored and humbled to have our incredible panelists here with you today to share those resources and help guide you in what's next. What I love most about this topic is that it is really generational. You can be a recent graduate who just graduated, or you could be very well established into your career, but we're all trying to figure out what's next, whether that's starting a nonprofit, sitting on the board of a foundation or organization in your community, or if it's starting a side hustle or business and figuring out how you can scale and fund that. So today we're going to cover it all, from the financial planning to the fundraising to the simply figuring out what's next today. And I'm so excited to go ahead and get our panel discussion started and introduce you to these wonderful panelists that we have here today. All right, Elizabeth, I have you up here first on my screen. I would love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself and the work that you do at iFundWomen.
Abigail, thanks for having me. I am Elizabeth Eichhorn. I am the Senior Entrepreneur Account Executive at iFundWomen. iFundWomen is the go-to funding marketplace for women-owned businesses and those who want to fund them. And so we help by having an online fundraising platform. We have a community for small and medium-sized business owners, and we have one-on-one coaching to help your business continuing to grow and keep you moving forward. And I live in Texas. I now just recently moved here, and I am excited to be here and talk to you not only about iFundWomen and how we can help with your entrepreneurial journeys, but also my own past 10 years of being an entrepreneur myself, of starting my own business. So I'm excited to be here. So thank you, Abigail.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So I'm actually working with iFundWomen too as well, because it's so important, and we'll get into this, that for early stage entrepreneurs, something I've learned from both my mentors who are here on this call and women like Elizabeth is the importance of fundraising and knowing that you have other options rather than giving your company away when you're starting out in your career. And so we're working with iFundWomen to help navigate as we begin to host hybrid events, right? So we're going to be moving towards a place where we're not just virtual, but we're using the best of virtual with our in-person events. And so we're working with iFundWomen along with our sponsors and partners to help start that. So I'm very excited to have her here today and to have my own journey with them. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Christine, you are next here on my screen. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone here.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Portillo. I am based out of Wayzata, Minnesota. And Abby and I got connected through Joe Gibbons, who's also on the call here. Hello, Joe. And So I work at Merrill Lynch. I'm a wealth management banking specialist. Prior to that, I was at another financial services firm. I'm originally from San Diego, moved to Minneapolis a long time ago, played college golf at the University of Minnesota, and then knew I was passionate about financial services and definitely wanted to grow in the industry. So here we are, and really happy to be here. Looking forward to getting to know everyone.
Thank you so much, Christine. Yeah, what I love about the WOW series is we are a family affair. We have had families, as Okay knows, speak on our different panel. I always have the support of our family and friends here at the WOW series. So I love seeing the connection and really intimate setting that grows. So thank you so much, Christine. Christine's going to be sharing more about her experience, of course, not only navigating career transition and especially what it's like as a recent graduate who played sports, how you navigate that and find passion in your career, but also the importance of financial preparation as we take our next step. You know, a lot of times that uncertainty of not having financial security is what can prevent us from taking that next step. So she's here to help educate on that when we are thinking about how to navigate that. So thank you so much, Christine. And next up, we have Haley Newman. She is the founder of Hills BTY, and she has navigated industry transition from working her career in fashion to now starting her own business. And what I really love about her is how she's starting a product that is kind of nurturing how the burnout that we can experience, whether it's a result of the pandemic or whether it's a result of the hustle working in your 9-to-5 role. She's really started a business that helps solve that through skincare. So she has a couple different topics of expertise which she can share with us today. And Haley, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello. Hello again. Thank you, Abby, for that great introduction. I appreciate that. My name is Haley Newman. I'm building Hales BTY. We're an inclusive, holistic cellular care line focused on bringing homeostasis, harmony, and equilibrium to the human experience. Because we're inclusive, we are basically for most skin types, you know, with everything going on in this day and age. I'm also building this brand towards thought leadership, social activism. I actually started this company back in 2019. I was working in luxury advertising, basically going through physical and mental transitions of what am I doing in my career? How is this affecting my health? How is this affecting the people I'm physically surrounded by? And so this has been a very, very intuitive project that is very harmonizing with the pandemic. And we're basically in phase 1 right now. We're going to graduate to other forms of healing. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited about that. So thanks, Abby, for introducing me.
Of course. Thank you so much, Haley. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank
And next
you.
up, we have Zoge Odige. She is joining us here from London. So thank you for taking your evening to join us here today and invite your community. She's a life coach, and I'm really excited to have her here because I think there can be such a stigma around coaching or hiring a coach. You know, it's kind of similar when we think about mental health and hiring a therapist, but there is such value in hiring someone with a third-party perspective to hold you accountable to help you take that next step. So Oge, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Hello, everybody. My name is Oge, and I am dialing in from Watford, which is a town just outside of London. Hope you can hear me okay. So yeah, my career began in education. I was a teacher, primary school teacher and school leader for about 15 years. And I really thought that was the only thing I was able to do. I couldn't envision any change taking place in my life. So I guess I made a move blindly with a lot of support from friends. And I think what made a difference for me was coaching. When I received some coaching, it gave me some real clarity on what I could do next, on what my passions were. Because for a long time, I didn't think I had any. I was one of those people that felt like I can fall into anything, but I don't really know if it's for me or if I can do something if I'm good at it, but I don't know if I'm passionate about it. So coaching really helped me uncover that. And like Abby was saying, before that, I didn't really think much of coaching. And when I saw the impact on my own life and on obviously the lives of people that recommended it to me, I thought, okay, I want to give back. I want to give this back to someone else. I want to help someone else who probably feels like me. And that's when the life coach chapter in my life opened up. So I do work by day as a change manager. That's my profession. I do project management, change projects, and then I do life coaching as well on the side. So I'm really excited to be here and learn from all these other entrepreneurs, how they've, I guess, turned their passion into what they do, and just network with people. So thank you, Abby, for this platform. Thank you, everybody that's here. Thank you for my Londoners and my family. Like Abby said, I got introduced to Abby by my sister, actually, and been on this platform ever since. And it's been amazing for my own personal growth. So I'm really stoked. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oge. And our final panelist, Rita Kakati Shah, she is joining us here, and she has an incredible story when it comes from navigating different industries, really embracing every opportunity that's come her way. And she is now the founder of and host of an international talk show and company called UMA. So I will let her go ahead and introduce herself there. And for those of you who are looking to maybe get into the media or what it's like to jump into different corporate professionals, she's here to help you navigate that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Abby, for that lovely intro. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here. So I'm from London originally, from not far from where Ogie is actually, but on the northeast side of London, a place called Hornchurch. And I've had career transitions, academic degree choice transitions, relocated, switched careers, motherhood as well, which for me was the toughest career of my life, I've got to say, and founded UMA really as a result for that. So a lot of coaching and mentoring as well. So I'm a big proponent of what Oakley does as well, and building on confidence, inner voice, and looking at diversity and inclusion principles is really the way that with the philosophy that we have at UMA. So I'm really excited to be here, excited to kind of see what questions you guys have, and what kind of discussion we can have today as well. So thanks again for the warm welcome, and looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rita. I know I'm so excited. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our about 40-minute long panel discussion here. So Elizabeth, you are up first, our resident fundraiser and house entrepreneur. So Elizabeth, you've had so many different experiences when it comes to your own entrepreneurial journey, when it comes to fundraising, and when it comes to your work now at iFundWomen. So I would love if you could share with us more about your journey through entrepreneurship and how you navigated that, and of course to how you landed your current role at iFundWomen. And for those of us who are looking to begin to fundraise our side hustles or even just start a business, what is your first recommended step for getting started?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny because being at iFundWomen, I talk to entrepreneurs day in and day out about fundraising, but I sometimes forget my own story within this and how I got started. So thank you for asking. So I got diagnosed with celiac disease, and I had just graduated with my master's in leadership, and I was headed into a different direction, truly working for hospice and a chaplaincy. And it was really interesting. I graduated though, thinking I was going to go into this field of chaplaincy. And unfortunately, I had this whole pivotal moment where I thought, this is not what I want anymore. This is not, like, I quickly realized this. The reason I talk about celiac disease is this was at a time when it was not the gluten-free boom yet. There wasn't everything. There weren't lots of food options for people. And I was still living in LA at the time. And so that's strange because Los Angeles has this mass amount of different kinds of food options for everybody and fits everybody's dietary restrictions. At the time though, gluten-free was not part of it because I was also diagnosed with corn allergies. All that to be said, there was not something for me. So I took this problem and I spent some time thinking about what can I do? How do I navigate this? Where do I go? How do I have community when I don't get to actually eat with my friends anymore? I can't go to restaurants. I can't. So all of that started my entrepreneurship journey, which is what most people do. They see the problem and they say, I think I can find a solution. And then they test it out and they realize, okay, no, actually, I know I can find a solution, and we're going to put this out there, continue to try it out and see what's going on. And so that's what I did. So I started out as a catering company. Then we owned a food production company, and then we opened a community networking and event center that went on to 9 different cities. And in between that time is when I found and ran across iFundWomen. And I was so sad that iFund Women was not around when I first started my business. The reason being is because funding was such a problem for me and my company, because people were trying to figure out, hey, here's a cool idea. We like Elizabeth's personality. Sure, we'll help fund this, but do we really want to pay this much money for like gluten-free products? Or do we really want to pay this much money for food that is healthy for us? And anyway, so funding was a hard problem. So I turned to crowdfunding. And at the time, it was like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, which is where I ended up going, and kind of GoFundMe. And I knew I didn't want to do GoFundMe, but that was it. That was kind of like it. And so I kept thinking, well, so what do I do? I guess I'll get on there. Food options were like, food companies were not something that people crowdfunded for. And so I said, well, we're going to try it out. We're going to test it. I'm going to learn. And I spent about 6 months researching crowdfunding. And I spent a lot of time digesting all of the different platforms, what's going on, talking about fundraising, having meetings with like loan officers to see if that's a route. But I was already in like school debt from my master's. So I was like, why do I want to pay more money for debt? Like, I'm going to have to pay for this business. Can I sustain itself? So anyway, long story short is that I ended up going on to Kickstarter, got funded through that, and was able to keep on moving my business forward. And I think through all my entrepreneurship journey, that's why I like love doing what I do, because I get to tell women all day long, hey, there are options out there. They're not as loud. It's hard to find them sometimes, and it's hard to get there, but we don't have to go through the funding route of like putting ourselves in debt, putting ourselves in putting ourselves in the position of letting other people decide our choices for us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I actually didn't know that you started, because you told me you started in like the food industry, but you didn't tell me that you were solving for like the gluten-free and various celiac diseases. And it's so like ironic to hear you say that now, because I'm sure many other are thinking, I can't believe someone said no to a gluten-free company. Now everything is gluten-free and everyone is gluten-free. And yeah, so it's such a true story though too. Like when you are the first one to do something, often you're met with a lot of adversity. And I would love to hear, so do you have anyone who's looking to get started in crowdfunding? What's kind of your advice for that like initial first step that they should take?
So anyone who is interested in crowdfunding, I think first off, you need to have a really solid pitch. So what is the pitch of your business? Like, so as I was saying, you need to understand what the problem is, like identify a problem and find the solution. And the reason why that's the first stop into fundraising is because you're going to have to communicate with a lot of people over and over and over again, and trying to tell them like, this is how I am going to solve this problem, and you are going to help me solve this because you're going to give money to me. And so you have to make sure that your pitch is solid enough and resonates with the people that you're talking to. So you need to shift that pitch through whoever you're speaking with. And then the second thing is continuing to build up your network. So joining things like the WOW series, continuing to connect with people in that chat. So all of you who are wanting to network, I know we have a networking session after. Start networking with each other now, like get each other's emails, make sure that you're connecting with each other. So what Abigail put at the beginning of this of Instagram, like that's a great opportunity for you to go on, click on people's Instagram and DM people and get connected that way. Because the reason why is that it is still a part, like fundraising without having to do debt or anything. Like if you want to get connected with investors later, it is about who you know. It is about how to build that network. And it doesn't mean that your network has to be so big. It means that you have to have the right people. Like you need to make sure that you have people who believe in you. You need to have people who have some sort of connection to money, and you need to have people who have who are smarter than you, who are willing to give you mentorship, advice, help you along the way, and be your cheerleaders.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And, I feel very lucky here. I have the value of your network and mentor really is so important. And I also love what you said about making, not only having mentors who can help you from a supportive standpoint, but you need people who can financially support you as well. And that's something I've totally been learning as I start the WOW series and continue to scale that. So what phenomenal advice. Thank you. And yes, everyone feel free to get started networking now. And the value of your pitch is so important too. And that's something I've learned as a new entrepreneur is how do you transition your pitch for who you're talking to? And how do you build that community of supporters who are willing to invest in you and your growth? Now, as Elizabeth said, any transition you make, whether you want to start a business or whether you're simply figuring out what's next, can be met with a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges. So Rita, with that said, my next question is for you. I would love for you to share with us how you recommend professionals facing setbacks or obstacles and getting started in their next step overcome that. And also, when is it time to pivot? You've had such a career with various industries and opportunities. I'd love to hear how you navigated challenge and then your advice for everyone here.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually going to rewind back actually to my university days, because that was really the first time I actually experienced transitions and having to pivot. Growing up in the UK and being somebody of Indian origin, my parents wanted me to be a doctor. And the school system in my day at the time, and this was in the 80s, was very much spoon-fed education, meaning that whatever the teacher wrote on the whiteboard, or in my day, the blackboard, you would have to just copy that down, you would memorize it, and you regurgitate it over time. And, I would be a good student. I would always revise and get, good grades, all the rest of it. So when my parents were like, oh, you're going to be a doctor, it's a family tradition, I'd be like, yeah, fine, whatever. Studied the subjects I needed to study in order to get into medicine. And I actually started off studying medicine. That was what I did. Then when I got to university, that was the first time that I guess I was let loose in a way. But here's the thing. So when you're at uni, and you guys know this, having been through the system, that, it's the first time that you're having to make notes for yourself. Somebody isn't telling you, you need to write this down. We're going to give it to you. We're going to spoon feed you this. You're going to memorize it and you're going to come out with it. That doesn't happen. So this was the first time I got to experience really what it was like to really learn for myself. And then I thought, my gosh, I was somehow just missing all of my anatomy classes because I could never stand the sight of blood. And I still can't to this very day. So I thought, there's something weird about this. I was missing just classes because I just didn't enjoy it. I remember crying in breaks and calling up my mom. And my mom was like, oh, just keep doing it, whatnot. And I kept doing it. Here's the thing, I didn't really go to many classes, but I was really good at my exams. So I had this ability. Once upon a time, I had a good memory, not anymore, but once upon a time, I used to be really good at just memorizing information. And certainly medicine back then, you just had to memorize and regurgitate. So I got myself distinctions at exam time. I was one of the top students to score. So even my tutor was like, oh, you don't want to be leaving the subject. No. What are you doing? You're one of my prize students. It took me 2 years. I had to complete my preclinical medicine to say, you know what, enough's enough. I had nobody back me up. My parents didn't back me up because they just didn't get it. My tutor didn't back me up because I was good for his class to show that, yes, I've got a top student here. But I knew it didn't feel right. I thought, yep, I could go out there and I could qualify, I could be a doctor, but that wasn't me. I was always a creative person. I used to like going out there, exploring the world. And this was something for me, certainly back then, that I didn't want to do. So I quit. My parents didn't talk to me. I was out on my own. And then I had to transition. I was like, oh, wow. So that I had two things going on. One was fear. Initially, I think, well, what are my parents going to think? And then I thought, okay, they've given me their words. I'm now on my own. And I had to figure out, what am I going to do now? So the second feeling I had was actually just relief. There was that fear I had, but there was a tremendous relief when I suddenly just sort of said, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I thought, okay, what do I want to do now? Now I'm actually in that position where I can choose. So having made that decision was so liberating. And then I thought, okay, what do I want to do? I loved arts, I loved languages, I liked maths. That was one thing. So I actually chose maths to study. I went to King's College London, and it was all part of University of London. So it was pretty straightforward back then to kind of switch over. And I contacted a professor in the maths department and just told them my story. And they were like, yeah, just come on board. And a week before the term was about to start, I told the professor, you know what, can I switch? I don't actually want to do maths anymore. I want to do maths and business management. They could have said no, but they're like, you know what, go for it. And that's what I liked. I knew nothing about management. I knew nothing about finance. I knew nothing about business. I wasn't brought up in that way. I didn't even have my own bank account. I was 18 years old and I didn't even open my own bank account until I was 18 and a half and at university. That's the sort of upbringing I had, you know. So here's me thinking, I want to do something different. But here's the other thing, I didn't put any pressure on myself. I went in to enjoy education. I wanted to learn. I wanted to embrace the subject. And the reason I'm sharing that with everyone is that because that was really my philosophy in my life. That's what really sort of paved my way of doing everything else. You know, I went in my first year in mathematics and management. I have friends with a girl in the year above me. She was going into a careers fair and I didn't go inside. I was like, oh, whatever. I don't want to think about careers yet. I've got another year or so to think about that and 2 years for an internship, whatever. I waited outside. She was gone for 45 minutes and this lady came out. We got chatting about the birds and the bees, life, nothing to do with anything work like. And then later on, my friend came out and the lady gave me her card and said, you know what? Our offices are down the road. It would be so lovely if you came and met some of my colleagues. She was the global head of recruitment at Goldman Sachs. That's how my journey started, long story short, in finance. And my career in finance was 10 years, a decade in the world. But that's the thing, I was one of very few women on the equities trading floor of Goldman Sachs as well. Knew nothing about it until I got there. I learned on the job, but I didn't put any pressure on myself. I was competitive in the sense that I wanted to do the best for myself. And it was a cutthroat industry, but I did not put that pressure to compete against others. I wanted to be the best for myself. I wanted to get out there. Like Elizabeth mentioned, I literally wanted to network from day one. That was really even before I even knew what the word networking meant. I just wanted to know what everybody did. I wanted to stay in touch with them. I just wanted to learn. And that was really what paved forward for my journey. I switched into different roles during my decade at the firm. And then, you know, fast forward 10 years, a family friend came up to me and said, hey, Rita, you know, I'm setting something up to do with clinical trials and drug development in Delaware. Can you help me? So my first question is, what is Delaware? Not where is it? I didn't know it was a place in the States where people open companies there because it's a tax haven. But that was my first experience of an actual career transition. I literally, from my perspective, I wanted to try something new. I loved my career at Goldman. I loved finance. It was my first and only job out of university. But for me, I thought, what else is out there? You know, I took a little bit of a sabbatical. My colleagues were like totally fine with that. And I got to try it out. So I would say everything, like, you know, from what you said, Abby, initially, if you can try it out, don't just jump into it, see what it's like, try it out. For me, I remember doing a presentation because my colleague was like, Rita, let's go present to a client. I thought, why don't we get this printed out in color, get it ring bound? And they said, well, there's a FedEx Kinko's up the road. I thought, wow, somebody's actually got to do this. I'm used to, in my 10 years at Goldman, I would send an email and then a couple of hours later, there'd be the beautifully put together presentations on my desk. It either had my team work on it or we had other colleagues. This for me was real life and I loved it. So for me, it was almost a passion to do something different. I knew when the time for me was to change because I just wanted to explore so much more. There was so much more in the working world, in life. I was in business development in the pharmaceutical industry, so I got to travel. And that's what brought me to the States. And I relocated and a few years later had my kids and started company Uma, really to kind of explore that confidence journey. And I had my own issues when I came to being a full-time mother, took that proverbial career break. So that was the other thing I had to battle out myself. What can I do about this? So I went on the entrepreneurial route.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rita. So much what you said there, I think really resonates with us all. And one part in particular is just you being open to embracing everything. I think so often we put pressure on ourselves or society or our cultural backgrounds put pressure on ourselves. So your message there is just so key and important. And also the value of trying something out. I think so often we have to commit and know our plan right away. But that's really not the case, especially when we're thinking about what's next and we have opportunities to explore. The value of trying something out is so important. And that reminder that you don't have to commit to it, right? And I'm really excited and looking forward to hearing more about kind of your journey through motherhood and how you started Uma and what Uma is as a result of that, because I think so often our personal life transitions can also impact our professional ones and continue to face us with more challenges and how we overcome that and how we balance our personal and professional lives. And Oge, this really dives into, I think, your expertise in conversation, especially when we talked in our interview, and just knowing you personally, you share so much and have really made a career out of helping women and everyone break out of societies and our cultural backgrounds expectations of us, which can be really hard to do. Sometimes we need support in that. Sometimes we need to see other people come before us who have done something different. So, okay, I would love for you to share with us your advice and your personal experience too for when we're facing different pressures or doubt or negativity or questions about our next journey when it doesn't fit into what others or a community or society might expect of us. How do you navigate that and overcome that? And of course, the value of a life coach in that journey.
Yeah, great question. I want to start by saying, Rita, wow, what a story. I wish I hung out with someone like you when I was at uni, and I would have known how possible change is and how you can do it without putting pressure on yourself. So thank you for sharing that. I guess in my own personal change journey, I said to you guys, I was a primary school teacher for 15 years. And then I transitioned from that. I wanted to go into something, but I didn't know what. I landed in business improvement. And even while I was there, I didn't have very much confidence in my abilities. So I think when Abby asked me the question about doubt, I would say a lot of the doubt I battled with was self-doubt, was internal, but I guess the advice goes both ways. So I battled with a lot of self-doubt, thinking, can I really do what these people have been doing? I was putting my worth in number of years, really. I was thinking, okay, I've only just started this, so I can't be as good as the people who've been doing it. And the way that I thought about that, the way I overcame that was really something Elizabeth said, like, put yourself in the situation, in the environment with the kinds of people that are doing the kinds of things you want to do. So rather than just thinking, okay, just keep talking to my teacher friends who think they'd moan, they'd complain how they didn't like the career, they wanted to change, but oh, what else can we do? And then we'd be back again the next term. And I had a few friends like that. And it was just this cycle of not being satisfied, but not being able to push out of it. And so when I did push out of it, I knew that I had to get another circle. I had to get with other people who believed that I could do something else. And that was a really helpful thing. So that's what I would say, like, network. Don't worry so much about where you've come from. Think about where you're going to, and be around those people. And again, it's also to just acknowledge that doubt exists, and fear and criticism, they're there usually because that thing that we want to do is very important. We wouldn't doubt it if we were going to choose between rice and noodles, for example, because that's not important, but you would, because you're making a major decision. And so again, just accepting and acknowledging that. And that's something my coach taught me, that, accept this fear and doubt, but move on anyway, do the thing that you want to do anyway. And ask yourself, do you really want it? So, I mean, I had another thing too is think about, if the doubt or criticism comes from outside, from people, usually I'm someone who gives people the benefit of doubt and realizes that, okay, when people maybe say something about what you want to do, they're probably in their own way trying to look out for you. When they ask you that question, are you sure this is what you want to do? Are you sure you can really do that? It's probably out of their own concern and care. So again, that's another thing that helps me say, okay, this is this person's maybe way of caring. This is their perspective, but I still have the choice to choose how I'm going to receive it and what I'm going to do with it. Because I remember that when I left teaching, I had a gap of 6 months when I was really thinking about what to do next. And I was a stay-at-home mom. Like I said to you when we chatted, Abby, I went through feelings of feeling really great about being a stay-at-home mom. And then another instance is feeling really useless, like professionally, thinking, oh, what am I doing? I have no career. My mates are building the career. And I spoke to a friend of mine, And she said to me, and I said, I'm really trying to figure things out because I can't continue in this way of being dissatisfied. It's not good for me. There's a cost of not doing anything as well. And, that feedback, it hit me two ways. I felt like she didn't really understand what I was trying to do here. And then the other way, it made me think, okay, yeah, I have to at least do something. And like Risa was saying, try something. I didn't have to maybe nail myself to one direction, but I had to get moving. And that's the other advice, I guess, when you're feeling doubtful, sometimes the best way to gain confidence is to act. Just begin taking some action. And you will build confidence from action. And it will help you as well decide if this is the route for you or if this is not the route for you. But if without taking that action, it will just be a guessing game. You won't really know if it's possible. And I think similarly, when I tried to become a coach, I spoke to a few people. This is what I'm trying to do, a few of my close friends. And I did have a remark as well about how, well, coaches have to have been through incredible trauma before they can be a coach that people would listen to. And I don't think you have. I mean, what trauma have you been through? What have you got to say? And I think for me, that was like, it just showed me that people didn't really understand. I could have taken that and shrunk back and thought, oh, this is not for me. But, the more I hung around with other people who wanted to be coaches, other people who believed in the power of coaching, I knew that this is this person's perspective. It doesn't have to be what I take on. They're just talking from the place of their own understanding. And then when I started practicing as a coach, before I had my first client, I was nervous. I was so many things. And just the power of action, it just fuels you and gives you more and more confidence. And so I would just say anybody facing doubt in trying a new thing is just do it. Just do it. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Remember that doubt is going to be there, even if you're doing what everybody does. As long as that thing is important to you, you're going to feel it, but do it anyway, is what I would say.
Yes. Oh, okay. I always love talking with you, and I always leave our conversations with your advice in the back of my mind as I go forward. So thank you so much for sharing. And what's really key is what you just mentioned, and what really resonated with me is that idea, that notion that doubt will always stay with you. And I think what's important to remember is no matter how successful you are, you will always have doubt. You could achieve everything that you had on your list to achieve, and still will have doubt. That's been something that's been so important to me, especially as I navigate being in my 20s, and I navigate both having a career, a 9 to 5, and having my business, and just having that doubt of, am I not doing enough here? How will I ever scale the WOW series? Or how will I ever manage all of this? And there's such imposter syndrome, especially when it comes to social media. And when you can see all the success of others, you also begin to self-doubt yourself. So I think that's so important, and is something I'm definitely going to remember too as I go forward. So thank you so much for sharing that and sharing your advice with all of us. Now, as we think about our careers and our 9 to 5s, or whatever career we might be gaining experience in and pursuing, well, we also think about career transition, or what you might want to do next. We're oftentimes faced with the question of, how do I take my current experience? How do I take the experiences I've had in my corporate job, in the entrepreneurial world, in my 9 to 5? How do we take everything that we've experienced and learned and transition that into what's next? How do we take that and guide us in what's next? So Haley, my next question is for you. As you've more recently come from the fashion industry and all the glitz and glam and networking there, to your current role here, not only navigating the pandemic as an entrepreneur and someone who more recently launched in our new crazy world that we live in today, but also how you connected your experiences to create and start Hales BTY.
Thank you, Abby. Hales BTY has been a very, very, sorry if it's really bright in here, you're seeing all angles. Navigating my career from fashion to Hales BTY has been a transformative process for me personally as I'm evolving into womanhood. I went to Parsons School of Design. I studied fashion design, and basically our school was very, very conceptual. They basically taught us how to be creative directors in the sense of designing your life and living authentically to that vision. And after design school, I found myself getting hired as more of an idea person, working with agencies, working for big fashion companies, working with campaigns, et cetera. And basically over time, I started seeing and feeling a connection that the industry was promoting false values that are toxic. And I'm sure a lot of you can see that just through the weaving of time, just statistically. When you think of cosmetics, for instance, so it's very bright in here. Cosmetics, for instance, are full of lots of carcinogenic chemicals. And I wanted to create a holistic modality that could soften the human experience, bring healing and harmony to our everyday lives, focusing on unity, inclusivity, and really connecting us with our bodies. And as a designer, for someone, a designer designing clothes for people, I saw myself as more of a creative engineer. How could I be a pioneer in innovation moving forward in New York City, building what I'm building, but for good? And again, I launched this company back in 2019, and I'm just letting the natural response to what I'm building help navigate the future of it for phase 2 and 3, back into, I guess, transforming in a way that's not linear, if that makes any sense. And that subconsciously is what is helping me design my own life and reweave/knit myself into a construct that is progressive, ergonomic, empathetic, healing, etc. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Haley. And something interesting I think you said there too is it actually connects back to what the other panelists have been saying, and particularly Rita, when we're talking about not putting pressure on ourselves. That's what you're doing with Hales BTY. And I think so often early stage entrepreneurs, and even in your early stage of your career, you put all this pressure on yourself to do it all now, to have it all figured out now. And your story, and your message is really important, I think, as a reminder of, if we are putting in the work, kind of letting what's meant for us come to us too, whether it's in your professional career, whether you're starting a business, but kind of just keeping working at it and letting the success come as a result of that, and really learning from your community and the need and the problem that you're trying to solve. So I think that's really important. And thank you so much for sharing too about how your experience in fashion and the problem that you solved there led you to create what you're creating now. I think so often entrepreneurs, or when we think about what's next, it's important to remember what are the experiences you faced and the challenges that you've seen and even experienced. How can you create a solution that will then lead you to your next step, right? Kind of using your personal experiences to shape that next chapter. So thank you so much, Haley. I'm eager to get into our second question with you more about your business and burnout and how you're solving that through the work that you do. So thank you. Now, Christine, I would love to talk a bit more about how we can financially prepare for this next step. So we've had the advice shared from our panelists here today and our mentors about how we can take this next step, with how we can use our past experiences, how we can overcome challenge, more of that mindset, right, and experience. But also what's so important is being financially prepared. And especially as a community of women here mostly, and women panelists, we need to be empowered with our finances. And I think that's something that we need to talk about more, and how we can take financial resources and steps and not only become financially independent, but plan for that next step that we want to take. So that way we can approach it with the confidence and overcome that fear and doubt that our panelists have mentioned before. So I'd love for you to share with us, of course, a little bit how you got started at your role at Merrill Lynch, but then also your advice or your guidance for women looking to take that next step. What can they do to feel more secure?
For sure. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. So I guess to take a step back, Joe actually got me into Merrill Lynch. So started with the firm in May, and it's been fantastic. I think it's a different dynamic, definitely bring a young female professional in financial services. I think that it's a very male dominated industry, which is actually really exciting to me, because it provides you an opportunity to sit at the table, learn, and kind of recreate and pave the path forward for what it looks like to, be in the corporate world and working your way up as a young professional. So, and going kind of circling back to that conversation about like self-doubt and confidence, I firmly believe that competence builds confidence. What can you do to create, a career path for yourself? And going back and figuring out, what framework do you want to create? And then where are you now financially, emotionally, stable wise in your career? And then figuring out what resources you'll need. So kind of tying in with all the other panelists' conversations and talking points about crowdfunding, or maybe you need support with different resources. So knowing the right people and finding people that are going to build your life up in every way, but also people that you are able to serve as well. And what can you bring to the table to them, whether it's in your industry or not. And so maybe it's connecting with people that are in similar industries than you are, and then bringing things to each other to have a mutually beneficial relationship. So and as far as financial planning too, I mean, super important obviously to understand what you need and how you're going to get there. So making sure you're set up for success, whether it's taking a next step to build a business or staying in your current role and just accomplishing goals for yourself personally, professionally, whatever that is. But definitely think that it's really important to sit at the table and be confident in your role and just get good at what you're doing, and then earn the right to take the next step and crush it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christine. That's so important too. I think especially when we think about like the early professional, right? We so often, and especially when we're graduating and you don't make that much money when you first graduate and you're just really trying to get to your financial and professional goals. But I love what you just said there about like earning the right to take the next step, because we do have to gain that experience. We do have to prepare, whether it's financially preparing. Elizabeth said this in our interview, like you have to know how can you afford to get there and who's going to afford for you to get there, which is a quote that I really loved. And I think Christine, you pretty much reiterated in your answer there, is knowing, before we can take that leap and that risk and do it with confidence, we do need to have at least some plan in place, whether that's knowing what we need financially to take the next step. And I think something that's so important that I've had to learn is also knowing that we need financial security. So what do you need to do to get there? Do you need to continue to learn in your 9 to 5? Do you need to continue to have this financial security of your 9 to 5? How can you align your outside passions of entrepreneurship with your current role as a professional if it is in more of the 9 to 5 workplace? How can you leverage these two together? And I think so often we hear in the back of our minds that you can't be both. In order to be an entrepreneur, you need to leave your 9 to 5 and you need to do it now, and that's the only way you'll find success. But I think it's important with what you shared there to remember that you can have the financial security, but also continue to learn from more of the corporate working environment, right? Build your connections, build your relationships, figure out who is going to be there for you to help you get there, to help you take that next step. So wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Christine. And our second round of questions are really going to focus more on the tangible advice that you can take, and also how we can use the learnings of our pandemic to help us take our next step. We're in a very unique way of working now, and there are new opportunities. So we can focus on what we've learned in the past year or so to help us take that next chapter. So Elizabeth, we're going to pass the question back to you. Perfect timing, as we just spoke a bit more about financial planning with Christine, and I really love how your two perspectives can come together here to talk about not only personal financial preparation, but how it can also be used to help crowdfund and scale our businesses. So I'd love if you could share with us how your work at iFundWomen to provide resources to communities that might not have access to crowdfunding, how that purpose and motivation helps align you in your career, and how others can help align their purpose and passions and impact on the world around us with their next step in their career.
Absolutely. I'm like writing notes from all of you. So I love all of this. So thank you so much for not only letting me be a speaker today, but like just sharing a lot of like letting me listen to these incredible women. So it's interesting because I think what the pandemic has done is there's a group of people, especially like a year ago, and it's it's the week that the lockdown happened. I was on 20 panels from the state of California. I was on a panel. I mean, it was just everywhere. There was this buzz. It was everyone was like trying to figure out, do I need to pivot? Where do I get money? Where it's happening? And we did this thing that I look back at, like we hyped it up. We freaked out. We did this, like, we got to have an answer. We need somebody to tell us what to do. And nobody had an answer. And that was what was so interesting. We were kind of left out into this space, especially as entrepreneurs, that was even more uncertain. And what we realized in that moment, where I Fund Women, like our whole staff realized, is that actually our entrepreneurs were better equipped for like handling this because we're entrepreneurs. And what that looks like is like, oh, we've made pivots in our life. We've had to shift. We've had to change. We've had to figure out, like, what is our side hustle? How do we sell this, like cup that I'm drinking out of? How do we get the money we need? How do we make people aware of my profession? And it was so interesting because we've seen this. It's been amazing to kind of watch people throughout this year come into their own with their entrepreneurship journey, and what that looks like when it comes to crowdfunding specifically. And that community part that you were asking about is, I think more people have actually raised their hand saying, I want to do this. I'm trying this out, but I need help on how to do this. And I think I've seen more people ask for help because I know I didn't. I think I was this, I didn't know a lot, but I also was like, I didn't feel like I had the opportunity to ask for help. So I started my businesses when I was in my early 20s and felt this totally insecure, like imposter syndrome that you were talking about sometimes that you can feel, Abigail, is that I felt that. I get that. And so I felt like I had to have this armor that I had to put on, where it was like, okay, I have everything together. But what the pandemic did was to recognize, like, nobody has a ton of armor put on right now. We're all kind of fighting, figuring it out. And what I've seen from these entrepreneurs with I Fund Women is that they're actually finally willing to like ask for help, raise their hand, say, hey, guess what? We're really not sure what to do. We're really trying. We're going to make this work. I need your help to do that. And that's kind of where the platform gives you the opportunity to share through, our Slack network, or we want to help people. We want to connect you. And so, yeah, I think that's what the pandemic has shown us for entrepreneurs, is that we are capable to do things because as an entrepreneur, that's what it takes, is to test, iterate, see what sticks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That's so important. And something kind of a fundamental principle there, I think, is to keep in mind that, just having the ability to problem solve will help you so much, especially in times of uncertainty, whether that's navigating your next chapter, starting your business, scaling in your career, trying to take that next step in your career and level up. As long as you're trying to problem solve, that's a skill, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, that will really help you navigate this uncertain environment that we're in today. And I love how you kind of went to your community to think about, our network here can help teach us and how we're navigating this. And something that I've really enjoyed about the pandemic is kind of breaking down that wall or barrier, to look into our personal lives and see, we all have lives outside work. We all have passions outside work, and kind of bridge that connection between all of us, and see our lives at home and our children running around, or our dog, or whoever we live with, and kind of know that, we all need help in different ways. We all have lives and passions and needs outside of our professional careers. And I do really love how that's kind of come together, and we see more of a human element in our new way of working. So Rita, on the topic of aligning our personal passions and missions with work that can better the world, that can connect us all, that could create more inclusive environments, you have made an incredible career and are partnered with incredible global organizations to help advance diversity, inclusion, and equality. So my question for you is, of course, how did you get there, and how did you connect all these pieces to start the UMA show? For others looking to kind of get started and work out what you're doing, for me, example, and how to really be a global change maker, how to get started in that, and who do you need to connect with and learn and know and all of that?
Great. Thanks so much for that question. So yeah, I mean, the reason I got started was really a passion. It was because of my life's journey. So when I first, in my pharmaceutical journey, when I first relocated to New York, I remember when I first came here and I traveled so much. Travel was practically my middle name. I loved doing it. But when I first moved to New York, it was very different from actually just traveling and living out of a suitcase to actually relocating and calling something else your home and actually saying goodbye to your family and your friend circle. So when I moved here, I became homesick. And the first thing I noticed when I arrived, I wanted to get myself an American Express. And I wanted to get myself an American Express because I had one in the UK for my professional career. And I thought, let me just get one, that's domiciled over here. I applied. 2 days later, I promptly got a rejection letter. So that for me was the first, I guess, slap in the face, because I thought, why is that? And I studied this. I did management. I knew business. I studied this. I worked in business. I didn't have any credit history, no credit rating in the US. So, but that was something that was an eye opener for me, the reality of it compared to, the theory behind it. So that's the first time I felt that I didn't belong. And it was something about that feeling that I thought, it's almost like no matter how hard you try, and I was trying to get my credit card, I was trying to do this, trying to do that. That didn't help this homesickness I was going through. I became very patriotic as a reason. I remember at the time, and this was back in 2011, April. So I don't know if there's any royal fans out there, but this was when Wills and Kate was getting married for the first time. And had I been back in the UK, I probably just would have watched it in the background on TV. But here, I thought, I got to get to Brooklyn Bridge at 4 a.m. to watch it live from a tiny little screen somewhere. So bottom line, that was because I was just craving to hang on to anything that reminded me to feel that sense of belonging. So that was the first thing for me that really got me involved in that. Understand, what do you mean by diversity and inclusion? What are these words that we all throw around today? What is it that actually bonds you together? What do we mean by inclusion? What does it even mean? So that was my first sort of journey of it. And then I got really involved in my work. I was in business development, meaning I got to travel a lot. And I just so got into my work, really to get away from the fact that I felt sort of a little bit lonely at times. Fast forward a couple of years, and I was pregnant with my son. I now have 2 kids. They're 6 and 8. It's amazing how time flies. But I remember at the time, when I had my son, and then my daughter soon after, I took some time off. I took around almost 4 years off exclusively to raise my 2 kids. And I got to tell you guys that I thought banking, sometimes working 24/7, was tough at times. I thought business development, traveling and crossing multiple time zones was tough. That was nothing compared to my journey of full-time motherhood. Not only are you sleep deprived, you are sleep deprived, 24/7. You can never take a sick day. You can never take a break. You are always on call. But the other thing it taught me as well is that I learned so much more that I thought I ever could when I was in the professional workforce. So things like communications, I'd always put myself down to being a good communicator. I could always string together a PowerPoint presentation or stand up on stage. I was pretty good at that. I didn't know what the word communications meant until I became a mother. Being able to understand that empathy, the listening, just reading these cues of these tiny little creatures almost that cannot communicate back because they can't talk when they're born, but you're understanding that teaches you so much more. That for me was communication. And then the other thing as well, and I joke about this, that if you can negotiate with a toddler or an adolescent, there's no one on this planet you can't take on. And that's part of that conviction, that confidence that I found that so many of us are actually missing sometimes. So these were sort of nuggets that taught me a lot about myself. So I remember when I went, my kids were now about old enough for me to trust to leave with a caregiver or a nanny, or for me to think, okay, maybe I'll experiment leaving them with a sitter now and again. Let me explore the paid workforce again. So I started meeting friends of mine for coffee and whatnot. And I was really surprised at the kind of questions I was getting. Not once did anybody ask me about my credentials and what I could bring back to the workforce. Everything, all of the questions are fixated on this gap on my CV, on my resume. Suddenly it translated to I wasn't ambitious anymore. I was a quitter because I chose to leave my last job. And that surely you can't know what's going on in the workforce. And that couldn't have been furthest from the truth. So it's really experiences like that which really planted the seeds for me starting Uma. By this time, I had my new best friend circle, other fellow moms out there that had really experienced some similar journeys, very unique journeys, but some similarities that bond us all together. And this is really why I started Uma, that confidence platform that not only just shows the world that what you're doing is incredible, but showing everybody else out there, knowing you have that confidence, that inner voice, that conviction that lies inside all of us is already there. I named the company Uma because in Hinduism, Uma is a goddess. I call her the goddess of go-getting because she is a mother, she's a daughter, she's a sibling, she's a wife. So she really depicts what all of us, regardless of what gender or how you identify is, we all go through that in our life at some point. So that's really what Uma is about, that ultimate sort of voice, that journey, that inner confidence, because without that, when you have that self-doubt, without that, it's really difficult to anything else. And then I just sort of went on that journey of entrepreneurship. You know, for me, I equate the entrepreneurial journey, and maybe Elizabeth can equate to this a little bit as well, is that for me, it's almost like having a third child, you know, but one that isn't diaper trained for a very long time, because you're up again, this is your baby, so to speak, and you are wearing so many different hats. You know, you are not just the CEO, you are the hiring, firing person, you are the tech expert as well. I remember when I first set up Uma, I got myself a laptop and I turned it on. I was like, okay, where's my email? Where's anything else? Because I'm used to working at companies where there is a team that sets everything up for you. So these are sort of real life examples where I didn't know, there wasn't a manual out there that I could have read, or anyone, there wasn't this forum that you've put together, Abby, that was out there in my day that showed people that, no, that's not the reality of it. You actually have to go get yourself a domain name. You've got to get yourself a server. You've got to find this X, Y, and Z to kind of be able to do this. So that's really kind of in a nugget of why I started Uma, the challenges I went through, but also it's ultimately that passion. It was a passion. It was my desire to solve something that I felt wasn't right in the world, that I knew other people had an issue with. And I thought, this is what I want to do to change something. I call myself a change maker. I've had a lot of experiences now with speaking to different forums around the world. But Abby, to answer your question, I've got this really red nose. I call myself Rudolph because when I first started Uma 4.5 years ago now, doors were just closing in my face. When you are the first person to do something and it's a brand new idea, no matter how good it is, and people think, oh, that's a great idea, if you're the first one, people will close the door and it hurts. But you have to think, what am I doing? Is it meaningful for somebody else? Is this going to make change happen? Is this for the betterment of somebody else? In my case, I could tick all those boxes. It was yes, yes, yes. And I thought, nothing is going to stop me. I know this is going to help people. I'm going to keep on going. And keep on going I did. And it took me a while. But once you get going, once people see, once you have one good experience, you have a positive testimonial, you've changed somebody's life for the better, that's when it starts. So it's not easy to kind of, you know, have deals and whatnot, so speaking arrangements and sign up deals with multinationals. It takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to be able to do that. But once you do it and you believe in what you're doing, it really, really makes a difference.
Oh my gosh. Is anyone else ready to go log off and just go like take on the world right now? That was so incredible, Rita. Thank you. So important and something we all needed to hear. And there are so many phenomenal points you touched on, especially as an entrepreneur and for myself in my own journey. That's so important to remember when doors are being closed in your face. Take that one testimony, I remember one person called me a while ago and they said, Abby, like I went to a WOW series event and now I'm applied to business school and I'm getting my master's in the States or whatever it might be. And I think about that when I have self-doubt, you know, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? Or no one wants this, or I'm having trouble finding sponsors or whatever it might be. I think about that one testimony, and your story there right now just reminded me to keep that in mind and to keep doing that. And it's so inspirational and motivational for all of us listening here today who might be starting their entrepreneur journey, or maybe you want that promotion. Maybe you're younger in your career and your doors are being closed in your face again. And you're like, why am I not being promoted? Or why is no one investing in this? So important to remember. And a big piece of what you touched on there that I'm excited to get into and lead into my question for Oge is that feeling of not belonging that you mentioned when you first came here to the US. And then again, how when you became a mother and went to go back into the workforce, again, that similar feeling of not belonging, of, you know, no one asked about your credentials. They just asked about the gap in your career. And something that I've learned so much about being an entrepreneur and just educating myself on the stories of the women in my community who have had different experiences than me is that feeling of not belonging being intersectional. You know, as female professionals, we can often feel like we don't belong because of our gender. But let's take that one step further. If we are of a different descent, if we immigrated here from a different country, if our skin is a different color, we can also be a female and then as well feel another sense of not belonging because we don't look the way like, you know, our peers look or anything like that. And we also may face experiences such as Rita's story. And it's something that I have really stepped out of my comfort zone to do, is to not only provide a platform where we can share these stories of those of us who have had different moments of not belonging and different cultural experiences and background, but also again, use my voice to share, you know, to guide in these conversations, to share my own experiences, to share my learnings, to help educate it and really be an ally in this space. And it is conversations with Oge that I have really learned how to establish my voice as well. And I think as a young professional, we're learning how to find our voices as females so often when we're told not to use them or to sit there and learn from others, right? And it is getting out of your comfort zone and learning from those around you and how you can learn to use your voice. Whether that is you're an entrepreneur and you have a platform where you need to take a stand on, or you're a corporate professional and you're in the corporate world and you want to learn how to use your voice for your peers and employees around you. So, okay, I would love if you could share with us how you got started using your voice and how you advise others to really become an expert in their field, whether they're 20, whether they're 60, no matter how many experiences they've had, and becoming an expert both in your career as a life coach, but then also, of course, for the issues we face around us. And if you have any advice for different platforms to use or how to engage and share your voice among your community.
Thanks, Abby. That's a good question. I'm going to give it a go because I think my radar always goes when I hear the word expert, but I'm still in the unlearning phase around this word. But I love your question because, you know, like everyone shared, it's our experiences that make us, I guess, unique. And there was a quote I read somewhere that says, our creativity is the sum of all our experiences and all our gifts and all our talents. And, you know, like Rita was sharing about the experiences her friends had and she had that led to the birth of Uma. And in my own case, I guess it's my experiences also that have led to where I am today. And it's something that I guess when they were happening, I wasn't really seeing them. It's only in hindsight that I've been able to see that these things are connected, because at the time that I was experiencing them, I didn't really know. So I grew up, believe it or not, very, very shy. Like I would rather die than actually speak. And my sister is on this call, my older sister, and she would take me everywhere and she'd just be like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you open your mouth? Are you mute? And I don't know why I was like that as a child, and for a long time, I looked at other people who were more vocal and I secretly wanted to be vocal, but I just didn't know how it was. I think when I look back at it now, I think it was fear of being wrong, fear of not saying the right thing, and all of that silenced me. But in that silence, guess what grew in me? The ability to observe people, the ability to observe what was being not said as well as what was being said. And I didn't even know it, but I became so good, I guess, at reading people and connecting with people and I suppose relating with people. And I took that into a lot of my friendships, into a lot of my working relationships. And that was always the thing that stood out, that people would say, oh, you've got great interpersonal skills, you've got great ability to build rapport. And again, when they say that, you think it's just, you know, people have got to give a compliment, you know, you don't always believe it. But I give that as an example of, you know, it's an experience or a situation where you're developing something, but you're not really aware. And then again, when I was a teacher, you know, I spent 15 years teaching, you know, different kids. you have to, when you're teaching, like Rita said, children teach you about communication. When you're teaching 30 kids who have got like 30 different abilities and 30 different ways of learning, you become skilled at communicating things every which way, you know? So I became skilled at communicating, breaking down things that were complex, like just taking people on a journey by communicating with them. And at this time, I didn't know. I just thought I'm doing my job. I didn't really think of it as anything. And I also, and I guess in the teaching as well, that's where a little bit of the ability to motivate also I began to develop, but I wasn't really tying them all together. I was just doing my job. And this skill of like observing people, communicating, motivating, those are the core skills that I use now as a coach. Those are the core skills that have helped me in my career as a coach. And I just believe that to really recognize this, I didn't recognize it myself. I had the help of a coach. I said to you guys, I struggled to find out what I was passionate about. I really struggled. I felt like everybody had a gift, but I didn't. You know, you see people playing musical instruments, oh, they're talented at that. You see people that really wanted to be doctors, and this is what they've always wanted to be since they were 9. But I never knew what mine was. And it took, and what I would say to people is you have to be conscious. You have to make a conscious effort to try and identify what your thing is. So what are the things that you're passionate about? You've got to be conscious, you've got to be curious. And it's a lot of work that I did with my coach around this that helped me to see, yes, you do have like skills in these areas. You don't necessarily have a name for it, but you know you're good at this, and you like this. And what is it that you love doing? What is it that people come to you for? You know, I had to consciously think about, okay, my friends always come to say to me, oh, I think you're going to have a great perspective on this. That's why I want to talk to you. Or I want to talk to you because you're going to really tell me the truth. Or I want to talk to you because you're not going to judge me. So all these signposts, they started becoming clearer for me. And I think that's what helped me to see, okay, I can take this as my what next, as my next step. I can put all these things together. And how do I do that? When I saw what coaching did, I realized that this is the name for it. And this is the thing that I could be doing. So I guess in answer to your question, when you recognize what it is that you are passionate about, I guess you feel like you can use your voice. You will be able to begin to use your voice. When you recognize this, when you don't, it is a bit tricky. You feel a bit off. You don't really know what you want to talk about. But when you do recognize it, you can begin to use your voice. And then to recognize it just takes being conscious. I mean, I talk to my clients a lot about journaling. I say it's a really good practice. It's a good reflective practice to journal. If you can do it every day, great. If you can do it once a week, great, because it helps you to stop and reflect on your life. And even if you can't do that, but taking stock of all your experiences, like if you're leaving one area, if you're transitioning from something, even if it's something as simple as, okay, I'm getting a promotion, I'm leaving this role, really just stop and ask yourself, what have I got from this role? And what has it taught me? So you can consciously take it into the next space, because we think, or we assume it happens unconsciously, and a bit of it does. But imagine how much more is going to happen when we are more conscious, when we consciously say, right, so I've left even something as simple as when we get off this call, what have I taken from here that I can put into anything I'm growing and doing? You know, if it's a job you've changed, asking yourself those kind of conscious questions, they really do help you to figure out what you're passionate about. And then that gives you the voice. So we talked a bit about being an expert, and I've always shied away from that word expert, because I felt like I had a false belief around it. I thought, you know, you've got to rack up so many years of experience before you begin to talk about something. But no, you just have to really believe it. You just have to be passionate about it before you begin talking about it. Now, obviously, you know, I recognize what Christine says about, you know, earn that seat at the, when you get your seat at the table, you sit there, you learn, and you earn, I guess, what she was trying to say earlier. There's a place for that as well, but there's a place for also speaking about what you value, what's important to you, and not speaking about it in a place, from a place of authority, like everything, but from sharing, like we're doing now. Like, I love how Elizabeth says she's taking notes. I'm taking notes as well. And I think that's the power of using your voice, of just sharing what means something to you and what you've experienced, because we can all learn from each other's experience. So I hope that answers the question.
It absolutely answers the question. Thank you so much, Oge. It's so important. After this call, I know we're all going to have so many reflections and conscious questions, especially from you. So thank you. And it's something that's so important and that I've recently learned by getting out of my comfort zone is when we find what we're passionate about and we begin to pursue that, we can begin to have a voice because we have confidence. We have our goddess of go-getting within us, right? We have that inner voice and we feel empowered to use it. So that was really important what you said there. And I think so often when those around us ask or are not sure how they can use their voice, such a simple first step is just driving that inner voice within you and pursuing what you're passionate about. And that really helps you to find that confidence to speak up. And I loved your story. It was so vulnerable and honest about how you were as a kid and where you are now. It really is so impressive. And I think so many of us can relate to that too. We often have so much fear when it comes to using our voices, especially today in a world of cancel culture and all of that, we can be even more scared to share. So I love what you said there. And I know so many of us can have learned from you and are learning from you. Now, Haley, when we talk about identity and how identity has shaped our career paths, I really love your story and kind of your personal story around how being racially ambiguous has been a big catalyst in your career and in your life, and how you honor your mother in the pantsuits that you wear and how you're growing Hales BTY. And I would love for you to share with us how a product like Hales BTY can be a catalyst for the greater change and healing around us, so that way others of us can take this advice and experience into mind.
Such a large and profound question. Thank you, Abby. My mother is Chinese American. She's a first generation immigrant in this country, and I was raised in Rochester, New York. My parents worked at Kodak. My father's Russian, to give you perspective. And so growing up racially ambiguous, looking predominantly, basically when I was growing up, most people thought I was European. As I've gotten older, just evolving physically, mentally, I'm starting to, basically live, how do I put this? Living through my mother's shoes and living empathetically from that lens. When I was growing up, I basically saw her go through a lot of racial discrimination. And so I've always been very empathetic about judgment and how judgment is so unnecessary, so toxic. She was an executive at Kodak back in the 80s, 90s, developing software, and just seeing how America is created by, the diversity that makes our country. And as a half Asian, half Russian American, building Hales BTY as an inclusive line, standing in solidarity with racial diversity, normalizing that, provoking thought leadership, being a social impact leader, feels very harmonizing with everything from my path going to Parsons, studying fashion design, to working for big ad agencies in New York, publishers, and seeing how our mind, our thoughts, etc., can contribute to the greater good, especially now if we invest in how we contribute to society on screen, in person, and basically with everything going on right now, how can we influence the media? How can we influence Hollywood, music, etc., in a way that harmonizes racial diversity and removes those stigmas around what makes our country so authentic?
Thank you so much, Haley. I love that, you know, you trusting our community and everything to share and really get into your personal story, because we could sit here and just talk about your business and how you produced it. But I really love that you shared with us, and am very honored that you shared with us, you know, your story to your roots and how it impacted Hales BTY. And I think a lot of us can leave this call kind of reflecting on our own stories with identity and how we can use that to really create different products, to have careers, to have a life with purpose that on an individual basis can create more harmony, can create more understanding, can remove judgment and all of that. Because as you said in your story, I think when we self-reflect within, it's a lot easier for us to understand the perspectives and positions and everything of others. So thank you so much. And I'm so excited to see where Hales BTY goes. And we will definitely be sharing that product among our community. So Christine, we are going to wrap it up with a question from you. You are my resident teammate in mind. We are calling each other all the time to see about how we can, you know, create our own team here that has greater impact on the world around us. And you are a former athlete as myself, so I really love how we identify with that energy and how playing a sport, no matter what age in your life, can really impact you and how you grow in your career, how you start your business, how you problem solve, but most importantly, how you build a team around you. You don't have to be an athlete still to build that team, that network that can help support you and advance you in your next step. So I would love if you could share with us a bit kind of about your experience as an athlete and building a team has helped you in your career, and your advice for others to kind of take that team mindset approach to their career and next step.
Yeah, no, great segue into the conversation here, especially with identity too, because I think that something I've struggled with is, so I played college golf, and it was probably the best experience of my life, just being able to learn so much personally and professionally, and have, you know, hard conversations, hard situations, and also find success through that. And it just kind of paved the way for me, I think, in a career too, just because golf is an interesting outlier sport where you're playing your own golf ball, you're on the course, but you have this team. So we had a super competitive team, and we would have to qualify against each other every week to travel to the tournament wherever it was in the country. So you'd want to be, you know, winning basically against your teammates, but then you have to come together and say, all right, let's get down to business. Here we go. Let's handle it. And so it was fun, and it taught me a lot of skills that I have brought over to the workplace as well, because you're playing your own ball, but you're still on a team and you still want everybody to win. So I think it's creating and cultivating a dynamic with whatever situation you're in, whether you're a CEO and you have, you know, a lot of people under you, or whether you're just starting out in a company, a firm, a role, and figuring out how to create some camaraderie and really utilizing people around you to build up a support system and a team. And so I think that goes back to our conversation earlier, and that's something that one of my, I would say, strengths is just connecting with people and building a network. But networking is such a broad term, and it's kind of funny because I always say I'm passionate about networking. Okay, well, what does that mean? Okay, I think it should be intentional networking. So going back to the conversation of how are you able to help others? How can I help you? And maybe they can help you, you know, everything kind of comes full circle with that. So I think, and especially in Minneapolis, I always say to people, Minneapolis is large enough to get lost, but it's small enough to build an incredible network. So it's been really fun getting to know people in the community and figuring out how you can impact each other's lives. And maybe it's with your career now, but you never know when someone's going to come back into your life. So that's what I would say there. But the transition from sport to career is very interesting. And I think it's, for me personally, my career is a really large part of my life. It's really important to me, and I love working. So figuring out how to make that part of your identity, but not make it your whole world, and just finding that balance between work hard, play hard. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christine. It's so important. I love what you said there about how really just paying it forward. Like, if we can just ask those around us very early in our career, how can I help you? How can I help you? You never know when it will come around full circle at the end of the day, whether it's 6 months or 10 years or anything like that. Just the value of nurturing your network with authenticity is so important.
I also, sorry to cut you off. I also think it's providing value to other people first. And like, you know, making yourself worth, connecting with. And then people will be really interested in connecting with you, and they'll want to learn and grow with you too. So value is huge.
Yes, thank you so much, Christine. I want to say a quick thank you so much to all of our panelists. This was such an inspirational and educational conversation. I'm so excited to continue it